Welcome back. In this video, we are going to take a look at the polls that have currently come out this morning, and man, has this thing changed. In the last 7 to 10 days, President Donald Trump has really chipped away at Vice President Kamala Harris's lead. Let's take a look here really quickly. I want to go right away to Trump's unfavorable rating. Look where we're at right here, 7.6%. This is by far his lowest unfavorable rating that we may have ever seen. He's been consistently in double digits, more like 15, 18% unfavorable. He's now down to the 7.6%. We saw back in the early part of the year, there was a 14% unfavorable rating. And as the summer progressed, right around 12, 13, you really didn't get a bump in the unfavorable with the convention, and even after Biden had pulled out on July 21st. But this has really begun to close. Whereas Vice President Kamala Harris's unfavorable rating, you can see here she's inching up and up. The gap has been closed. This has just got to disturb the Harris campaign, just dramatically disturb them, because we have now at 7.5% unfavorable for Donald Trump. I don't think anybody really seen that coming. But listen, as we move forward to November 5th, 2024, let's take a look at where the most current polls. And listen, these are very credible polls. We're using data from very credible agencies. We're taking some from the middle, some from the right, some from the left, but they are credible polling agencies, and we're going to dive into this really quickly. Let's get to the easy calls first, though. If you go to the East Coast and some of these closings here, let's just start with Maine. Maine splits their electoral college votes. Maine and Nebraska, very unique setup over here. So Maine has 4 electoral college votes, 2 go to the popular vote, and then there's 2 other districts. Kamala Harris is going to take the popular vote. She'll take the 1st district, but Trump, who was actually pulling down about 5 percentage points in a very conservative part of Maine, his base has come back to hold, and he is back to where he needs to be in that district. So if we look, make a little adjustment here. Kamala is up about 3-1, and then just really start early here. Let's go to the really easy calls, though. You're going to see the Vermonts, the Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, the most liberal state, home to Bernie Sanders. Quite a character. New Hampshire. That's going to go to the vice president as well. New Jersey, very interesting. Trump is not doing bad in New Jersey. He's not going to take that state. But when Biden was still in the race, some polls had this as a tie, and Biden up by just merely 3 percentage points. New York is another interesting scenario. That state is going to go blue. But let me tell you something that's going on here. Democratic presidential candidates. Go back to Clinton. Go back to Barack Obama. Biden even 4 years ago. These candidates on the Democrat side win New York by 25 to 28 percentage points. She is only polling at about 12 to 14 points here. If she cannot pull a 20+% win out of New York, it is going to telecast and forecast what's going to take place down the rest of the state ballots, getting over here into Pennsylvania, bleeding into Michigan, bleeding into Wisconsin. This is going to be a problem, and it's going to be a fortune-telling moment for this November 5th, 2024 election evening, where Vice President Harris may be headed. She has to win this state by 20+ points. Let's get back in there into the easy calls as well for her. She's going to be pulling all these Delaware, Connecticut, District of Columbia. I'll make sure I get it because I left it out last video. But District of Columbia, she'll take that easily, like 70% to 30%. And let's go to some of the easy calls for Trump. When Ohio closes, this is not a bellwether anymore. This state is red, red, red. It's not going to go Kamala's way that evening. So Trump will take this state very easily. He's going to easily hand by double digits Indiana, Kentucky is dark red. West Virginia, very red. And as many of you know, West Virginia is more than just a 4 electoral college votes on election evening this year. There is a Senate seat going on, battle that's up for grabs. Joe Manchin, very well respected Democrat. He's held that seat for years and years and years. But as many of you know, the last couple of years, he has begun to separate himself from the Democratic Party. Basically came out and said he was more independent, started separating himself from Joe Biden. He is retiring. And Justice, who is the former Republican governor of West Virginia, is running for the Senate seat, and he is just smashing the Democratic opponent. There's not even a poll that's been taken in this state for a year. It's more 70-30, 65-35. So the Republicans are going to flip this Senate seat right here. We'll talk about another one on the West Coast shortly, but they're going to flip this, which is, at least is going to give them a 50-50 split, potentially 51-49 before some other calls are made. Tennessee is going to go extraordinarily red. Missouri, red. Iowa is going to be Trump country. We've done very well the last 2 elections. Arkansas closes at 8:30. That's a weird time frame, but 8:30 on election evening. That is going to be red. Louisiana, no doubt about it. That's a 65% to 35% red for President Trump. Mississippi, dark red. Alabama, dark red. North Carolina, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. It's be very close to call. Let's go to Florida. 2016, this was going to send Hillary Clinton to the White House, break the glass ceiling. She was up by 4 to 6 points in some polls the morning of the election day, and Donald Trump snatched that state away from her, and then he padded his lead in 2020 over Joe Biden. Florida is definitely red. Let's swing over here. Kansas, very red, no doubt about it. Oklahoma's dark red. Texas, the Democrats have kept their fingers crossed and hoped and prayed for the past 2 elections that they could somehow, possibly, steal the state of Texas and turn it blue. 2016, they're polling very well until election night 2016. Donald J. Trump snatched Texas. 2020, same thing. Democrats had hopes. Didn't work. Texas went red. This year, early part of the year, February, March, there were a lot of people on the ground for the Democrat Party in Texas. Some polls had them within 3 points. But as the primary season cruised on through and they came to their senses by late summer, they realized this was not going to be even close. Trump's going to get those 40 electoral college votes. And it's interesting, Texas gained an extra electoral college vote, as did Florida this year. Pennsylvania and New York, because of the population flight from New York and Pennsylvania further south, lost electoral college vote in each one of these states. Florida picked one of those up. Texas got another one. So at this point in the evening, Trump's up about 180 to 90. Let's go to the West Coast. Washington's a no-brainer. Washington's a no-brainer. Very, very blue. Oregon will go blue, but I don't believe this is going to be as dark blue as some people suspect. And Oregon's interesting. They don't cast ballots on election day. Well, they do mail-in. Excuse me. You can, but it's a mail-in. This is a 100% mail-in state. We will start getting some returns, though, in the evening because they begin counting those mail-in ballots very early on election day. California, dark blue. It's just getting bluer and bluer and bluer. However, there has been some population flight from California over bleeding into Nevada and Arizona, and a lot of Californians that we see down here in Texas, which a lot of if you're from Texas, you call that the United States of Texas. A lot of Californians have fled that state. A lot of moderate to conservatives have fled the state to move to greener pastures, less taxation, and a little more reasonable common sense in their daily lives. But California, nevertheless, is blue and getting bluer. Alaska, red, no doubt about it. Some polls earlier in the year had this thing about 3 to 5%, but now the most current polls have Trump up by double digits. Hawaii, on the other hand, is the flip side. Hawaii will go about 65, 66% for Vice President Kamala Harris. Montana, red. Another situation with the United States Senate seat here. John Tester has held this seat in a very red state, but he's a very respected Democrat senator. Well, Tim Sheehy, running against him, Tester maintained the lead until early part of the spring, late spring, and then she began to make a move. Post Republican convention and Kamala Harris stepping in the reign. This is amazing. She has really affected this Senate race. Tester was holding his own with Biden in it. Kamala comes on board, and they just fled. The moderates, the independent thinkers in Montana, have jumped over to the Tim Sheehy camp. He's now leading this race by about 6 to 8 points, even in the most liberal polls. This is going to be a flip in the Senate from blue to red. The Republicans will now take a Montana seat red, a West Virginia seat red. There's no way the Democrats hold the Senate. Las Vegas is not even going to give you those odds at any respectable rate. The Republicans will flip the Senate. It depends on whether they go 51-49, 52-48, as there's some contested Senate seats that are getting closer. It's hard to believe, but closer, with Sherrod Brown in Moreno in Ohio, and then the Slotkin-Rogers race in Michigan. But the Republicans are going to flip that Senate seat. Let's go to Wyoming. That's going to be very red. North Dakota's red. South Dakota, Trump country. Nebraska, Trump country to an extent. Here we have a split. Again, Nebraska allocates their electoral college votes over popular vote, which Trump will win. He will win District 1 and win District 3. But Vice President Harris has a district that's been carved out. The Democrats have carved Nebraska has carved a district out, the legislature there, sort of around the Omaha area. And it's just really hard for the Republicans to get that one vote out of there. There was some hope that they could be a little closer with it, but it's not going to happen. She's going to have that. You see here we're at 200 to 169, fairly close. Idaho's no-brain red. Utah is going to be a 65% red for Trump that evening. Colorado is moving close along the lines with California. It's just getting further and farther to the left of center, and Vice President Harris will have no problem taking that. She will also win New Mexico, but some polls have this really within 5-6 points. This state is becoming a little bit more to the center, as in previous years, and there's a large Hispanic population here, and they are not in the pockets of the Democrats like a lot of the other states are. You've seen this surge in Hispanic support for Trump and the Republican Party, and it's flowing from New Mexico into Texas. And you have some of these other key states we're going to talk about that have a lot of immigration, a lot of illegal immigration that's taking place, and there's a large Hispanic community of legal immigrants in these southern states, and they are not resonating with the Biden-Harris and now Harris-Walz way of thinking in those campaigns. Trump is polling at 50+% nationally among registered Hispanic voters, and that's amazing, because it's a group of people that came here and followed the rule of law. They went weekly, monthly, went down to the immigration office. They kept filing their paperwork. They went through the process, and they obtained their citizenship and right to live and work in the United States of America legally. They resent the fact that the Biden-Harris ticket, yes, the Biden-Harris ticket, allowed this surge of millions of illegals to penetrate these borders and just flow in. It's just been a boon and a boost for the Trump campaign among Hispanic voters. So this is going to hurt in the southern states. But New Mexico, next 2 or 3 presidential elections, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let's go to Nevada. Nevada is going to be very, very, very close to call that evening. But Trump is now within 1 percentage vote. He is now within 1%. He's chipped into Kamala Harris's lead here, post-Biden pulling out and post the DNC convention. It is pretty obvious that he is going to now take the lead here and pull this out. Arizona, very close for the most part, but all the current polls now show, and you can look them up. You can look up even the most liberal polls. Trump is now getting nearly a 2% lead, and it's increasing. He's going to snatch Arizona, and it's 11 Electoral college votes. Let's go to Illinois. Illinois is going to go blue. But I'm telling you, this is not going to go blue by 20%, and it should. The black male voting, registered voting population in this country is starting to align with this candidate right here, Donald J. Trump. His message resonates with them. They have been bribed and coerced into believing that the Democratic Party had their best interests at heart for decades, more than a century. They're starting to see through that. They're starting to see through that. This is going to be an interesting evening. If Trump somehow is able to make this a 9, 10, 11% deficit, it's going to give us an idea how Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, as it pertains to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and the black male population there. Do not underestimate the black registered male voter in this country. Do not take them for granted any longer. You cannot. They're very independent thinking, and they see things a lot differently, and the Trump message resonates with them. Minnesota, it's going to be blue, but not by very much. Minnesota, incredibly close. Some polls have this down to 4%. I cannot see a scenario for Donald Trump to win Minnesota, but if he was able to pull this out, he would have a landslide. The rest of the night would be a landslide. But right now it's still close, 227 to 213. We're going to go down here and take a look at Georgia. Georgia, very close for the last 2 or 3 months. Post-Biden pulling out on July 21st, Vice President Kamala Harris got a huge jump, and she pulled ahead. But Trump, over the last month, his message is resonating. That base has come home to him, and the moderate and to slightly left in the independent voters are not understanding this message that Vice President Kamala Harris is sending, because there is no message. Her whole platform is to vote against Donald J. Trump. She doesn't have a plan for the economy. She doesn't have a plan for foreign policy. She does not have a plan for the border that she was in charge of. Okay, so this is going to be red. That's a no-brainer. South Carolina is going to go red by 65 to 30. Virginia, it'll be blue. But this is going to be interesting. Before Biden pulled out, this was a tie. Kamala came in. Her base came back to her, and it was a 7 to 10%. All of a sudden now Virginia's back in some sort of play in a way. A lot of polls have this at 5%. There are some at 7 and 8, but there's some at 3 to 5%. She should win this. But again, what happens in New York, very liberal state, we're going to see, could transcend down here to Virginia. Right now we're at 252 to 226. North Carolina, so close, but Trump has been doing very well. He has not relinquished the lead here recently. That state's going to go red at the end. And everybody say a shout out and a prayer for our brothers and sisters in North Carolina. I don't know if you've seen the videos of Asheville, but it was unbelievable. This is a city that was inland, and the hurricane come up through the south, 2 days up, and just devastated this state. So everybody do a shout out, say a prayer for North Carolina. It will go to Donald Trump. Now we're into the 3 states that are going to call this election. That's going to tell us who the next president, the 47th president of the United States, is going to be. I want to go up here and take a look at Wisconsin. Vice President Harris, I want you to look at when Biden withdrew, Trump had a 3% lead. And it went back and forth. But then Harris got her mojo going here in August, and she maintained a fairly steady lead, 1 to 2 points. At one point, a little closer to 2. But now we're seeing some consolidation. We're seeing some coming home of the moderates. Some independents and moderates, and even some Republican voters that just Trump is a little too harsh for them. Wisconsin's a very easygoing, flowing state. They don't like a lot of bickering and bittering. They don't like a lot of trash talking among political candidates. But Trump has started to resonate. His base is coming back. You see a bump up here for him. But look at the graph here. Look at what's taking place with Vice President Harris. Look at this free fall. And Trump is now within 0.4%. When this election is called late evening, early morning hours, November 5th, 2024, Wisconsin's going to be red. Donald Trump will have enough to put him over. He'll have enough to put him over. Still too close to call, but Donald Trump should win Wisconsin. Let's go to Michigan. He has been down repeatedly for several weeks. Had a little bit of a lead. Biden withdrew. But then here comes Harris, and she's doing very well. She's maintaining a lead, a bump. But not sure what happened, but his message began to really resonate the first part of this month. A lot of it has to do with the campaign on the ground, boots on the ground. Trump has been in this state a lot. But his message regarding the economy, regarding the auto industry, is starting to favor the Trump camp. And remember, the major union, the biggest union in the United States of America, did not cast their vote and their sway for the Democratic presidential candidate this year. And underlying hints were they wanted their members to go red. And you're seeing this move. Trump has now moved up in Michigan. It's incredible. He was at the Economic Forum today, gave a very good presentation. Seemed to be very confident, very calm, cool, and collected. Michigan's going to go for Donald J. Trump. And we go over here and look at Pennsylvania, which if the Wisconsin-Michigan scenario should change and somehow Vice President Harris were able to snatch those two states, Pennsylvania is going to be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Trump has now moved into the lead. Big lead for Trump before Biden withdrew. And then Harris comes in, and she's been consistently on top. But now look, she's having some struggles. Again, she doesn't really give interviews. She doesn't stand for anything. She does not tip her hand. She kind of just does the cue card presentation, kind of repeats herself, and when she's not mumbling and rambling and cackling, she doesn't have really anything to say, and it's just not resonating. Trump has now pulled in the lead in Pennsylvania. I want to look at one other interesting thing at the very end here before we get to the Pennsylvania call. This is a path to 270. And when you look at what is required from Vice President Harris and Donald Trump, Trump has the easiest path. I want to show you. You see Florida. You see Texas, Ohio. As this path goes further to the right, Trump's margin of victory in each one of these states becomes unobtainable for Vice President Harris, okay? So we're focused on these that are 1%, 1.5% or less that are close. The path to 270 for Trump requires him to hold all his states he's supposed to hold on to, and then hold Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia, which all three he's leading. And as the polls came in today, he has caught Vice President Harris in Pennsylvania. His path to 270, hold Arizona where he's leading by almost 2%. Hold North Carolina where he's leading by 1.5 to 2%. Hold Georgia where he's leading by almost 2%. And then take Pennsylvania where he has caught Vice President Harris. For Vice President Harris, her path to 270, she's going to win Minnesota, New Hampshire, Virginia. Everything to the left here are states that are gimmies for her. She's going to win these. But look at her path to 270. She's got to win Michigan. Trump just took a small lead there. She has to win Nevada. Trump is within 0.5 percentage point now. She has to win Wisconsin. Her 3%, 4% lead has evaporated. It's down to 0.4%. And then she has to win Pennsylvania, where she led. And now she's relinquished that lead. And her graph, this thing right here has just gone south for her. And if you take a look, Donald J. Trump's going to win Pennsylvania in the early hours of November 6, 2024. We're looking at Trump at, I believe, a minimum of 312 electoral college votes. There's a couple of models that play out. They get him to 320, 322, 326, but 312 is pretty much where he's going to park at. She's going to be down here at 226. She's not going to catch him. Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States of America. Listen, if you enjoyed this video, I love the data. I like the graphs. I like digging deep. Thank you for staying around with me. I love your comments. Thank you for the likes. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button, because November 5th, we got a big night. We're going to do a live stream. You're going to love it. You're going to enjoy it. Thank you so very much.